Thank you for watching my thoughts on a video. I encourage you to watch it, which labeled itself as a debate. Origins Debate, Creationism, or Theistic Evolution was the title of the video. It was on Dr. Sean McDowell's YouTube channel, named after him. He's a professor at Biola. They wanted well, it was called a debate, but it really wasn't a debate, at least the way debates usually are. They got 3 speakers, and each speaker was supposed to talk for 20 minutes, and they did, and then he asked them a few little questions when the next speaker was getting ready, and then they had questions from the audience, and then the presenters had questions for each other. The 3 points he wanted them to get across in their 20-minute presentations were how to make sense of Genesis 1 and 2. Just in case you don't know, Genesis 1 and 2 are different. In 1, the animals are made first, and then the people. That's in Genesis 1. Genesis 1, it specifies, it just says mankind in general, but it doesn't say one individual man. In Genesis 2, the man Adam is created, and then the animals are created and brought before him, and then the woman is created, Eve, the first woman in the history of this world. So how do you make sense of those? 2, what's their take on Darwinian and neo-Darwinian evolution and their compatibility with their person's beliefs or understanding of the Bible and God's creation. And 3rd one was, is there design in nature? Do you believe there's design in nature, or we should look for design in nature? The speakers were Dr. Fuz Rana from Reasons to Believe, Dr. Kathryn Applegate from BioLogos, and Dr. Randy Guliuzza from ICR, Institution for Creation Research. Randy Guliuzza was the first to do his 20-minute presentation. Here's a quick summary. He talked about some cases where we know environmental triggers have been proven to trigger different genes to activate, and that shows some amazing design and complexity that defies an evolutionary explanation. He told a story about when there was a paint contractor. I guess he was working for the government when this happened, because he said, don't worry, your government's money wasn't wasted. A painting contractor who painted 1 coat of paint when the contract called for 2 and left. And then it ended up being a court case because they said you didn't paint what you were supposed to paint according to the contract. And the painter went to court, and in court he said, the contract says 2, but I fulfilled the contract if I made 1 layer of paint as thick as 2 layers. Fortunately, the judge did not buy into that bad logic. But Randy Guliuzza is saying, when you look at the Bible, you should believe it says what it means, that there's not some fancy code in there. That's the best way to interpret the Bible, and makes sense to me, that argument. I don't remember a spot of specifics about Fuz Rana went next. But before this debate, I've watched Hugh Ross videos, and I have a very negative opinion of Hugh Ross. And it's a miracle that I'm not screaming the name Hugh Ross, because I've gotten very fired up, and when I made some videos where I was commenting on a Hugh Ross video. But he made a respectable presentation and increased my respect for Reasons to Believe and Old Earth creationism. Then Kathryn Applegate made her presentation, and part of her presentation was telling her story about being a student at university of these biological things and not fitting in at work or at the university because of her faith in God, but not fitting in at church because she went to church and believed the story she was told at work, and so she didn't feel like she fit in anywhere. And I thought that was very sad. You could just like go to church and say the book that you have at church is true, and like be into the world because you're at the school but not of the world, like not believing the atheist, secular humanist creation myth that apparently some scientists are required to believe nowadays, or at least pay lip service to when they are at work. She told she restated a story that it's a children's book that her children have about a gruffalo that was told to be very scared of big dangerous mice, and it met a mouse, and when the mouse was walking away after their conversation, the shadow in the moonlight looked huge and scary, and she was accusing that those who do not believe the Darwinian story are making it out to be some big monster, when it really isn't, when it's just a metaphorical, innocent, sweet, little, cute, harmless mouse, not big, huge, monstrous mouse. She made the accusation that the Bible was written to people who believed in a flat earth with a dome above it and the ocean past that dome. I don't think she's got a good point there. You see, if the ancients believed something wrong, God could have corrected them. Hey, he did. He told them, thou shalt not do things. Don't be like these other people. He told them, he corrected people. So it would make sense if the ancient understanding was completely off to correct it. And let's see, then the question and answer section of this presentation, Randy Guliuzza from ICR gave a good description of the order of the fossils. The fossils do educated creationists don't think or claim that the fossils aren't out there, or that the fossils are, mixed up and that there's no order to them. But he gave a good description of how that order does not fit the Neo-Darwinian belief, but fits a worldwide flood perfectly, because the lowest orders are sea life. And so, if there's a worldwide flood, what's going to be lowest? The things that are lowest are going to be buried the lowest. Kathryn Applegate used the word convergent evolution. That's a very annoying term to hear, because it's just a sycophantic expression of a love of the word evolution, but it's not really evolution. It's, well, it doesn't prove evolution if a bat and a whale have sonar and you use the word convergent evolution. That doesn't prove they have a common ancestor. That just proves you like using the word evolution. Oh yeah, she said people can look at the same evidence and come to different conclusions, but I hear her coming to all of the same conclusions after looking at the fossils that the atheists are coming to. She said we should look for less complicated designs in nature. If it's not complicated, it's less likely designed. I think she had a very bad point there. And there is tons of complicated designs in nature, mountains of evidence of animal parts and deoxyribonucleic acid in a cell that are very well designed. One of the most ridiculous things I've heard people say about the Bible is it couldn't be true because where did Cain get his wife? And Kathryn Applegate is feeding that stupidity. The Bible never says Adam and Eve only had Cain and Abel. Since it doesn't say they only had Cain and Abel, and it is clear that there was only Adam and Eve at the start, where did he get his wife? He married his sister, of course. Everyone had to marry their sister for that first generation. Adam and Eve had lots of kids. We don't get all the kids' names. So what? It doesn't say only about those 3 named children. And so he married his sister. You don't need thousands of people. But Kathryn Applegate said there had to have been thousands of people, even though evolutionism does say it started off with one single cell organism that started everything. So they contradicted themselves there. But she said, believing there were thousands of people when there were 2 people that Adam picked as Adam and Eve. It's not a literal Adam and Eve if they are not the only ones, because the Bible's clear about them being the only ones. But that explains where Cain got his wife from the thousands of other people. No, it doesn't. Cain married his sister. The case closed. Alright. And the subject of what does it mean when the stars, moon, and sun were made, Fuz Rana, of Reasons to Believe, said his understanding of those verses in Genesis 1 is that is when those things became visible. That the Earth's atmosphere was too murky, clouded, dark, something like that, for the moon and stars to be visible. That's a position I can have great respect for, because of my understanding that God, when it says God created this earth, the heavens and the earth, it's just talking about this creation, this planet, maybe the solar system, but not the whole galaxy, not the whole universe, that God created from pre-existing material. And God might have made planets before us, inhabited planets before us. Maybe he's making an inhabited planet right now somewhere else. And so the sun, moon, and the stars, they could just have been visible, made visible. So thank you for watching this debate where the young earth creationists made the best points and made the best case. My respect for Reasons to Believe went from very low to higher than that. And where BioLogos, wow, the BioLogos representative helped my low opinion of BioLogos to stay low.